We'll get started in just a minute. I'll allow some more time for folks to show up, but we'll get started at 11. I'll be recording the meeting, so you're welcome to leave your camera on, turn it off. If you have questions, you can ask them in the chat, but I won't be able to monitor the chat very easily. You can also unmute and ask questions. It's 11 o'clock now, so let's get started. Welcome everybody, thank you for joining today. We will be talking about propagating Asclepias fascicularis, narrowleaf milkweed, from seeds and from rhizome cuttings. If you have questions, as I mentioned, you can put them in the chat. I may not see them. I'll probably talk for maybe half an hour, and then we'll have time at the end of the meeting to answer questions and to discuss. And I'm really interested in the folks who have grown this plant. If you want to share your experience, that would be wonderful. So this is a meeting of the San Diego chapter of the California Native Plant Society. And this is quite a bit larger than we normally are. It's a popular topic, apparently, obviously, and for good reason. And normally we were meeting in person, and we have a really nice space that City Farmers Nursery allows us to work in. Since COVID, we haven't been able to meet in person. There are still plants growing there, but we're not having large group meetings. So we're deciding how to implement that again once things get a little bit safer. We've been having online meetings on Zoom and doing more talking than hands-on. And if you're interested in joining in either of these formats, send an email to propagation@cnpssd.org and let me know you'd like to be on the email list. As we resume, we're looking at doing a hybrid of in-person and maintaining an online educational presence to include more folks and make it more accessible. This is a group of people at the City Farmer location, and our meetings, even on Zoom, are usually more collaborative, and we tend to have more discussion. Because this meeting is a little bit larger, I'll give the initial information, and then we'll have some time to work as a group and talk as a group. It's a really fun group of folks. People who like growing plants are fun to be around in my experience. And so we'd love to have you join in. You can get the emails and find out if the schedule and topics are interesting to you. So why do you grow milkweed? A lot of people grow milkweed for monarch caterpillars and the butterflies. They're a host plant for the caterpillars, and the caterpillars feed on them. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking about that. Today, I'm going to focus on the propagation aspect. There's so much to the ecology of growing this plant and everything that comes with it. And so we have Mary Duffy with us. And if you have some questions about the monarchs, she may be able to field those. And there's a good recording of a group that presented from the San Diego Pollinator Alliance on monarchs and milkweed. It can be used for cordage material. So I told my teacher, Stan Rodriguez, in the Kumeyaay program at Kumeyaay Community College, that I was going to the Lakeside farm where Earth Discovery Institute is growing milkweed. And his reaction wasn't monarchs, it was cordage. You can make cordage out of it. And so I have some, oh no, this is gonna be hard to see. I have some twisted cord that I made from dogbane. Indian hemp is another name for it. And so I'm really excited when these plants, the plants that are growing up this spring, when they start to die back, I'm excited to try to harvest the fibers and process them for cordage. So that might be a reason you grow it. Aphids and parasitoid wasps, and then the aphid mummies that come later. That's something, if you haven't seen, it's pretty cool. The wasps will lay an egg inside of the aphid, and then it's kind of gruesome, but the little larva will eat the aphid from the inside out and then leave via a hole. And it's pretty cool to see that process. And I really like that part about growing narrowleaf milkweed. Tarantula hawks. When I first saw tarantula hawk getting nectar from the flowers, I might have been more excited than I was about monarch butterflies visiting. I expected the monarch butterflies. I didn't know the tarantula hawks would visit. And that is so exciting to me to this day. The beauty of the plant, narrowleaf milkweed may not be one of the more showy of the milkweeds, but it is a pretty nice plant. You can also share seeds. So there's a lot of good reasons to grow this plant. And I'm going to try to launch a poll. Let's see if it works. I don't know how to launch a poll. Do I have to not share my screen? Oh, right there where it says polls. Okay. If you have the ability, feel free to take this poll. While you're taking it, I'll give you just a little bit of background about me. I've been leading this CNPS, the San Diego Propagation Committee, for about 2 years. I teach plant propagation at Cuyamaca College, where I was a student maybe 13 years ago. And I've also worked on the seed and bulb team in the past for CNPS. And I serve as a board member for Earth Discovery Institute, a group that's really great at getting kids out into nature and doing science. So sometimes kids who don't always have the opportunity otherwise. And so the poll results are coming in. Oh, nice. A lot of you are taking it. It looks like a lot of you have grown milkweed in the ground, planted milkweed in the ground. Some of you have done it in a container and some of you haven't. So very cool. 66% right now. Keep answering now, it's changing a little bit. 2/3 in the ground. A little less than 1/3 in a container. And some people have not grown it. That's cool, welcome. If you haven't, welcome to the club, it's gonna be fun. And then, have you ever tried growing native milkweed from seed? Yes, and I was successful, 30%. Yay. Yes, but it didn't go well, about the same 30%. It can be challenging. And then no, 38%. And then 100% of the people are growing milkweed for monarch butterflies. Very good. Some of you said for life preserver filling. Apparently in World War II, there were big milkweed grow operations. And then I'll show you a picture of it, the pappus, the floss that's on the seed that helps it fly through the sky and land somewhere else. They had a harvesting operation set up to fill life preservers for World War II because they didn't have access to the kapok tree that they had been using. We won't go too far off on that side note. Tarantula hawks, some of you like them to share the seeds. Very cool. Some of you like the aphids and the aphid mummies. All right. Thank you for sharing in that. That's interesting. I wasn't sure where people, oh, now I can share the results. I didn't realize you couldn't see that until now. So I ended polling and I shared the results. So in the ground, a lot of you have some success, some not success, some people haven't tried. And then monarchs. They're beautiful and amazing and have some struggles. but we won't go too much into that. We're going to focus on the seed part and the rhizome propagation. Why should you propagate your own milkweed seed? Availability can be challenging. Right now, I didn't reach out to the nurseries, but I looked on Tree of Life, Moosa Creek, and Native West Nursery availability lists, and it doesn't look like they have any in stock. If you're interested, reach out to them. They may well have some in stock, and I may not have. It was a week ago I looked, so availabilities change all the time. When we grow it from seed, we can get locally sourced milkweed. So a lot of the seeds in the past may come from different parts of the range of narrowleaf milkweed. And there's opportunities to get locally sourced seeds, and Earth Discovery, the Pollinator Alliance, is working on making locally sourced seed more available. You're able to get narrowleaf milkweed if you grow it yourself. It can be really easy to find the tropical milkweeds that can be problematic in nurseries. That seems like it's starting to change. And if you grow it yourself, you can get the narrowleaf milkweed. It's available from the CNPS, the San Diego Seed and Bulb team, from their website, which is, if you go to cnpssd.org, you can find the seed and bulb availability, and there is some available right now. Theodore Payne Foundation has some available, but I don't know where they're sourcing theirs. I'm not sure where our group is sourcing ours, but Cindy Hazuka is great, and she keeps really good tabs on that. If you're curious, you can ask her that question. And then it's really inexpensive from seed. If you can get that seed to grow, you can have a lot of plants, and you can share those plants. Are there any questions that I should address as I'm going along that can't wait till the end? If I go over something that we would be missing out if I didn't cover it, somebody can feel free to ask me that question. Harvesting seeds. So here are some larger follicles, and those are the seed pods for the milkweed plant. They're really interesting. They're challenging to harvest from because they split open, and the seed, the pappus that you can see right here, it's not expanded right now, but when it dries out, it expands, and then these seeds float away. So my family usually tells me when I need to pay attention to the seeds and go out there and collect, because sometimes I come home when it's dark already. Oh, I keep advancing, I apologize. You can harvest when they're still a little bit green, but the viability the drying down, these may not be viable, though I have a tendency to harvest right as that follicle starts to split open. You can put a rubber band around this, I saw when I was looking at a Xerces manual. That sounds like a lot of work. And you can use gauze bags and put them around individual seed heads and allow them to fully mature. That also has the benefit of excluding some of the milkweed bugs and things that will feed on that plant material and potentially reduce the viability and the number of seeds that are formed. How much work do you want to do, and what suits your lifestyle? So seed maturity, these brown ones are nice and mature. They're probably very viable, able to be grown, germinated, and grown out. These ones may be a little less viable. Here are some seeds that are out in the wild, which I don't know if I've ever seen a native stand of milkweed out in the wild. And Mary said she'll take me and show me, so I'm excited. And you want to be really careful about harvesting from the wild. You need landowner permission. You may need permits. And And is this a sustainable practice? So if everybody's going to one plant and taking all the seeds, what's left out there in nature? So be really careful about harvesting from the wild and look for places to acquire seeds ethically. So San Diego Pollinator Alliance is working on that, making those available. Storing seeds, seed dormancy, and seed treatments. Storing seeds, this is my seed storage thing. I have one drawer in the fridge that my family allows me to put seeds in. It's good to store seeds after you've cleaned them in paper and then put them in paper if you're not drying them down and freezing them and all of that. So just general storage, minimal effort. Get the floss off of the seed if you can, get the plant material off of the seeds, and then put them into paper and label the paper, label the bag, because you're always going to remember what it is until you've got this many packages and you don't, and then it's challenging. Asclepias seeds, there are some papers written on the viability of seeds. Many times, a lot of the seed is viable. They can stain it and see if the embryo is still alive, but they sometimes have dormancy issues. So these are chemical or different kinds of protections against germination. And a great way, easy way to break the dormancy of Asclepias seeds is to stick your dried, clean seeds in a paper bag into the fridge for a couple of months. So that's the biggest tip that I've got for the day is get your seeds, clean them, stick them in something that's going to stay dry, and put them in the fridge. You can do cold moist stratification where you add some moisture to paper towels or potting soil. But Mary Duffy was telling me that Sue Krause at Moosa Creek said, don't even bother doing that. They get really good results from just putting the seeds themselves into the cold environment. And the timing that I use for this, usually the fall is when your seeds are getting ready. And then by the spring, when you're ready to start planting these out, they've been in there long enough and it's fine. I tend to put all of my seeds in the fridge. It helps them to slow down on the metabolic things that are happening. And it usually doesn't cause any additional problems with the seeds. So I just put my seeds in the fridge. I know that they're climate controlled and I know where to find them. And sometimes it helps with dormancy, as in the Asclepias. You can try your luck. You can just put the seeds wherever and try to grow them out in the spring. Yeah, it happens. Sometimes you don't get around to the cleaning and everything, but you can put the entire follicle into a bag. So here are Asclepias fascicularis seeds. These are I got a plant from Guatai Nursery when it was around, and I looked at the records of when I started to donate seeds to the Native Plant Society, and it looks like I was able to do that within a year or two. The plants were pretty nicely grown into the pots, and they transplanted into my yard really well. And then started to get seeds and collect those. I've been sowing seeds this year, quite a number of seeds from my plants. I don't know where the original source of that seed is, onto flats. And I either just kind of scuff it up a little bit, or I've sprinkled some soil over the seeds, or I've just left them on the surface. And I haven't noticed a huge difference with any of that. I'm not planting them very deep at all. And and I've had a lot of luck. I'll show you some of the results. I and my students at Cuyamaca College who've also sown several milkweed seeds this year. We've been using up space in the hoop house. Here are the stands that were sown directly into the ground, and added to these stands are some plants that came from containers. And this is at the milkweed farm at Lakeside Downs with Earth Discovery Institute. So that's a possibility as well. I like to sow seeds in a flat because I can keep track of them and water them intensely. So these are some of the flats that were started at Cuyamaca College in the hoop house. These flats, we started the seeds in grower week 5, and I took this picture in grower week 12. So these are 7 weeks old. And then here is last week. So that's about 12 weeks along. I way thickly seeded these flats. Here we've taken bits out and transplanted them out. These got a lot of water. They were getting mist from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. for 30 seconds every 45 minutes. And I don't know the rate of the misters, but they were getting a nice mist every hour, more frequently than every hour. Not a lot of water, but to cover the surface. We tried a lot of different soil types. One was largely peat based. One was half peat, half perlite. One was sunshine mix #1. And those are the main ones that we tried, and we had success with all of them. So the peats tend to hold, especially when we're watering like this, they tend to hold a lot of moisture, and it didn't seem to adversely affect the seeds. The lighter soils that had more perlite, more airspace in there, they did really well in all of these conditions. So if you have experience, I would be interested in hearing that when we get to our discussion question part. It's great to keep things sterile so that what you're trying to grow is growing and not the pathogens and other stuff. Moist soil that isn't sopping wet, because that soil can start to promote fungal growth and pathogen growth, bacteria. Soil that doesn't completely dry. Seeds are little embryos that are really susceptible to drying out. And these newly germinated seedlings with their little seed leaves, their cotyledons, are really susceptible to drying out. So if your soil dries out, it can suck all the moisture out of that little baby tender plant and you won't have anything left. It's great to have air movement. One type of soil is a third peat, a third vermiculite, a third perlite. Vermiculite can be really good as to spread over the top of seeds because it holds a lot of moisture and it won't let those seeds dry out while they're germinating. You can use bottom heat. That can often speed the process along. And there are little grower kits that you can get at different garden centers that have a heating pad, and then they have a dome to maintain moisture in there. That humidity can help because these are so susceptible to drying out. And then label your flats. When did you start it? Maybe keep a record book. For potting up the seeds, these have really decent roots coming from the flats. You could sow them directly into containers. You can sow them directly into the ground. We did it in the flats, and pulling them out of the flats, they had really nice root growth. Even at the cotyledon stage, these haven't even started to form the true leaves. So after about 7 weeks, these are probably a little older than 7 weeks, probably 10 weeks, we transplanted. These roots are pretty tough. They don't have a lot of fine root hairs, so drying out, I would be concerned about, but they don't seem as finicky as some. That's anecdotal though. We put them into a lot of different potting soil types just to see how they perform. We're not keeping really strong, good records on this, but I'm just trying to get a general idea of, is that over there failing in perlite? Let's not use perlite. They are really good growers in our environment. They're in a hoop house that is completely shaded. And some of the plants that I took home, I find that they're reaching toward the light. So we're gonna need to move these out into full sun. I think that they'll be happier. Full sun and lots of water. So this isn't a drought tolerant California native plant. This plant tends to like a lot of water. So you saw the picture back there of the narrowleaf milkweed in the wild. This is narrowleaf milkweed in my yard. It gets a lot of water from runoff from our garage roof and our driveway. And then it tends to dry out. And it's hard to see, but this plant has spread from roots to several different spots in the yard. I don't think I've had any seed germination. If I trace any of the plants in my yard, I can find where I originally planted. There are roots that are connecting these. So we can do vegetative propagation, and we can use those roots and the rhizomes to do that. This could be a much thicker stand, I think, if I were to supply more water than what we naturally get. I do sometimes water them, and I do sometimes spray off aphids when I'm in the seed production phase, spray off aphids and milkweed bugs when I'm working on getting the seeds to grow, because I don't want them feeding on the plant and reducing seed production. So this gets quite a bit of water, but I think if I were to water it steadily throughout the year, it would be a much denser stand. So here I dug up some of the roots, and I'm trying to figure out the difference between roots and rhizomes. I do believe that these are the roots, and then toward here, it gets a woodier rhizome, and I have a close-up picture of that. The rhizomes will have nodes, they'll have buds, dormant buds on them, and you can propagate from these rhizomes. You potentially can propagate from the roots. You will need to have adventitious growth of a shoot. And I have to admit, I haven't done a lot with roots and rhizomes. So I'm giving you kind of the idea of it. And it's got some drawbacks, so I probably won't be working with it a whole lot. So advantages of using cuttings and doing asexual propagation. It's an option when all of your seeds blew away because you didn't keep track of them. It's a way to propagate. This will run all over your yard. It's a way to start to pull things out and maybe stick them somewhere more desirable or pass them off to friends. Along with this division, I can take those plants that have run along there and done their own propagation. I can just take that and divide it off the main plant and hand it off to a friend, put it in a pot, hand it off. Potentially faster maturation and fruiting from vegetative cuttings. Maybe it goes to from seed to seed maybe in 2 years. I may need some verification of whether that's true or not. That's my impression, and I haven't looked at papers on it. Drawbacks, if you're doing this vegetatively, you don't have the genetic diversity. You have a clone of that parent plant. So if there's a susceptibility to pathogens, it may not have the variety of genes to withstand that in an area. It may not have the range of genes that will help the plant overall adapt to climate change that we're dealing with. So keeping a lot of different genes out there in the environment is a good way to hedge bets and to give the plant a chance to see which genes might help it, give it a survival advantage. So hardening off plants is toning plants, is the idea of transitioning them from these cushy propagation environments, if you decide to go that route, out into the real world. The advantage, if you grow it into the ground, it's in its spot, and you may just transition how much you water after they've germinated. So if you're in a hoop house or a protected environment, it's pretty cushy. It's got higher humidity. It's probably shaded. It might have temperature control or bottom heat. And if you need to get it out into San Diego conditions, you may want to move it slowly from a shaded environment to a sunnier environment. These plants like sun, they also like water. You probably don't want to do that when we have a Santa Ana, because the plants really need to change physiologically how they're working so that they don't dry out. Their stomata will close more efficiently. They'll develop waxy layers, different strategies for surviving harsh conditions. And so gonna time it and maybe cushy environment, part shade environment, more sun, and keep an eye on the watering while you do that. So that's what I have. We'll have a discussion next. I want to say thank you all for attending, and thanks to Mary Duffy for helping me out with a lot of the information here. You can join the email list at propagation@cnpssd.org. Write in there that you want to be added to the email list. Otherwise, write to me if you have questions and I'll try to answer those. Or I'll probably send you a list of resources if it's more monarch related than propagation related. So thank you all. I'm going to stop sharing screen, and then we're going to look at the questions. And feel free, if you would like to raise your hand. Let's see, we're all on one screen. No, we're on 4 screens. Probably unmute yourself and ask a question, because I won't see if you've raised your hand.
Hi, Amy. Britt here. I have a question.
Britt?
What about propagating by cuttings? Have you been at all successful with that?
I haven't done stem cuttings, but I did hear, so it's hearsay. I did hear that there was a nursery that was doing stem cuttings. It takes a lot of effort and time, and I think that it can be done, but if you can do it by seed, you get a lot more.
Oh, I know, but I just wanted to try that.
Try it and let me know. Has anybody done stem cuttings? No? Britta, let us know.
Okay.
If you need material, let me know. I've got lots. Heather Barbian said that they tried and didn't. They didn't work for them.
Okay. I have another question. All that stuff that's being propagated at Cuyamaca, are those going to go in the nursery? Are they going to be sold?
That's a great question. We did a count after lab last Saturday, and there were 640 quarts. And the nursery is not currently open because we're remodeling and because of COVID, but we're hopeful that the new facility will be open summer, fall. So I don't know if the timing is going to be right. We have a production meeting tomorrow. This is going to be one of the items that I bring. It's a great question. They're not going to go to waste. I don't know how they'll be made available, but I could send out an email if you're interested to the propagation group, letting you know if they go for sale.
Yeah.
Yeah. Will do. It's a lot of great material, and I don't have that answer. Let's see. I saw somebody raising their hand.
Hi, I'm Scott. And
yes.
I have a question. Will this same seed propagation method work for the Asclepias californica and speciosum? Have you tried with the other species?
Mary, have you tried the other ones? I haven't.
The only ones I've tried this year are the Areocarpa, the woolly pod.
Mm-hmm.
They came up super easy, and they're much earlier at germinating than the narrowleaf milkweed. Which there's one big thing I found with narrowleaf milkweed: you have to be patient. You can have them in the ground for a long time before it warms up to that ideal temperature they love to just all sprout at once, unless you're heating them, you're putting on heating pads or something. But I've only tried the woolly pod, and it germinated really easily.
Okay.
I don't know about the Californica or any of the other California species.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is it too late to start them from seed now? I just started some a few weeks ago. I haven't sprouted yet, but like Mary said, it takes them a little while. So I'm hopeful. It seems like good timing to me. Anybody have input on that? I have to admit, I'm pretty new to doing the Asclepias fascicularis from seed, but I've had a lot. Oh, okay. Erica Looney started some 10 days ago in a container and they're sprouting. Yay. Yeah, I think it should be okay to start. I see a lot of questions in the chat about overwintering, and you know, once they go dormant, you can just leave them alone. Is that what most people are thinking? They don't want to be watered when they're not active. That just is more likely to promote pathogen growth than anything. Questions or comments?
Hey, Amy, Nick here.
Hi, Nick.
Are there native, San Diego native milkweed species?
Great question. I didn't really cover this. So there's the Asclepias californica, Asclepias areocarpa, Asclepias fascicularis is what we're focusing on here, just because I have it. It's in our range, and a popular one. Did I miss any, Mary? Those three. Wait, you're muted.
Sorry. There's actually 7 native species in San Diego County, but most of them are desert species, except for Areocarpa. There's also Californica and fascicularis. So then there's the 4 desert species. One of them sometimes you see in the Cuyamacas, and then there's the climbing milkweeds, which are a different genus altogether.
Funastrum. I just gathered some of those seeds. They were a little too green. So I'm going to go back in a little bit. Can you easily tell whether a volunteer milkweed is a native or not? That's a good question. My experience is that the tropical volunteers a lot more readily than anything else. I work at Sweetwater Authority as a watershed caretaker, and I've seen the swan, is that what they call it? Milkweed, seen that growing wild, and I've seen the tropical milkweed growing wild, and I've never seen the native ones. A picture would help here. I don't know.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Hey, so I thank you so much for doing this today. I'm propagating about 8 different kinds of native milkweeds. And I just have a question about soil for some of the more desert and rocky milkweeds that want more fast draining. So what is your experience, or it sounds like Mary might have some as well, of propagating some of the more desert milkweeds? What soils are you using for those?
I haven't propagated any of the desert milkweeds, but I would assume, because most of them grow in real sandy or loose soils, I would just use decomposed granite or sand. I would definitely keep them well drained. And they're usually in arroyos or washes, so they probably need that seasonal water. I'd love to hear what you find out about that. That's an interesting one. You know,
Yeah,
they're
because,
more attractive to the queen butterflies, which is great too.
right, because their roots are so small compared to if you had, you know, something that had a cotyledon, let's say it's a narrow leaf with a cotyledon. I mean, the root would be 6 inches long, but it's completely reversed with those deserts. There, you can have cotyledons and true leaves and barely a root. It looks like it just wants to stick in a rock, right? So,
Oh, cool.
okay, I'll try sand and DG. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, let me know what happens. I'm really interested.
Yeah, that's excellent. I love what everybody brings to this group, and it's definitely not a one-person show. It's a lot of cool information coming together, so that's awesome. I would love to hear how that goes. Somebody asked if now's a good time to plant milkweeds out. I would be really careful, like today is rainy, but earlier this week it was last week it was a Santa Ana. So just look at the forecast and be ready to add supplemental water if you need to. And be really on top of that, because it is in that weird San Diego time where it's warm and it's, yeah. Mary shared her email. Joseph listed the 7 species in the county. Thank you so much. Do monarchs like the climbing milkweed? That's something that I meant to research before I came here. Mary? Nope.
No, I mean, I wouldn't say they don't like it. They don't lay their eggs on it. They
Okay.
probably put nectar on the flowers, which is great because we want to support all the pollinators. But they're pretty partial to Asclepias, and they really like narrowleaf milkweed. It's hard to compete with tropical milkweed on any given level, but their native preference is narrowleaf milkweed.
Excellent.
I just had a question about planting up in the Julian area, planting because I have a packet of the narrow leaf seeds that I think are a couple years old from I think it's from the CNPS, possibly. I'm in the Pine Hills area.
You could definitely grow narrowleaf. I found narrowleaf milkweed as high as Julian naturally, especially around Cuyamaca Reservoir. You could definitely grow it up there, but I don't know if having seeds, and Amy could address this, that are that old. I think a lot of the problems people had in the past with buying milkweed seed from, you know, a regular seed company was that it was older seed. I don't think it has a very long shelf life. There's very little seed, very little kern there. Amy can probably address that better than I can, but I don't think if you've had seed in the packets, it's gonna respond that well. I would try it though. I'd love to know.
Okay, and try it in a seed flat first, not directly in the ground this time of year?
Yeah, you're getting late.
It's easier to give it the water that it's gonna need to keep it uniformly moist while it's through that really tender stage. If you do it in a flat, is what I find. I find if I put it out, I don't water enough, the water goes off the area. And yeah, but I agree. I would try the seed, and I'm trying some older seed because I'm interested as well in if it's viable at all. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
I know this is probably taboo, but can you grow native milkweed with the exotic milkweed? Or can you grow them together, or?
Yeah.
All I have is the exotic because I can't find the native.
Got it. Yeah, it'd be great to transition over to native, and the San Diego Pollinator Alliance is really trying to work on making it more available. So
I do plan to transition. I just have to find them, find the seeds and plant those.
Yeah, I'll email when Cuyamaca College decides what we're doing with ours. Let's see.
I'm planning to take the propagation class.
Yay! We have so much fun.
Yes, I'm taking the other some of the other classes. So I'm taking soils right now. Excellent. And edibles. So I am going to take the propagation class.
Yay, it'll be fun to have you. Cuyamaca College has an ornamental horticulture department that offers a lot of really cool classes, and many of them have hands-on labs. So I'll make that plug right now. Yeah. Alita, you raised your hand.
Alita.
No. Heather, did you have a question? Or we talked about it? Okay. I'm now seeing how to. Oh, do seeds stored in the fridge need to be planted immediately? You're asking that question, Mary?
Oh, I answered it. Plant immediately.
Plant immediately. Got it. And if you don't, if something goes wrong, plant them anyway.
Yeah.
Tell us how it goes.
Yep.
But yeah, get them out of the fridge. Don't let them go into dormancy again. Good point from Robbie Walters. If you have the tropical, cutting it way back. There are a few issues with the OE parasite, and also with is the season when the monarchs can feed on the tropical milkweed, does that extend the season here and keep them from being migratory, and how problematic is that? So yes, cut down exotic milkweeds each fall. Justin has some good information there. Justin, did you want to say anything about what you just typed?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, not much to add. The OE builds up on all the milkweeds, but the native milkweed goes dormant, and that takes out the OE with it every winter. And so as it comes back, it has to build up again by infected monarchs that are usually year-round residents rather than the migrant residents. So I'll cut down anything that I can find that's the non-native milkweed around November or so, and then try and encourage the monarchs that are all year to nectar on other types of plants in the yard. And now that the native milkweed is coming back in, I hope that they'll transition from the junk food onto the better milkweed and start to add their eggs onto the native patch.
Nice, thank you. What is the best way to start Asclepias areocarpa seeds? I would say similarly to the narrowleaf.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have experience with it myself, but Mary's had good luck, so.
Really good luck. Came up earlier than the fascicularis and seems to be doing great. So somebody said that they thought it needed less water. That's good to know, because it's the first year I've tried growing it. So if it needs less water, I need to work with that. Thank you.
And thank you all for catching some of the questions in the chat and answering them. That's great. Really appreciate that. Aletha, did you want to unmute?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, good. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So for the cold stratification, how long is it typical you would need for the narrowleaf?
I've seen 6 weeks to 2 months as yielding really good results. I tend to do it longer just because I'm not ready to plant between the time it sets seed and I collect it and the time when I'm ready to sow the seed. But there is a paper, and if you remind me, if you want to see the data that they got, they had some good results with fascicularis after 6 weeks. Many of the milkweeds are highly viable, but some populations and some different species have dormancy issues. And so putting any of them into the fridge tends to help with that dormancy and lets you see that they are very viable.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just note, and this is just, it's not firm. I know like Sue just puts everything in the refrigerator but I found I had better success if I actually put the narrowleaf milkweed seeds in the refrigerator with some vermiculite in December, January, and a little bit of moisture. They seem to germinate better than just straight in the refrigerator. It's more work,
Okay.
but they did seem to germinate better.
Well, that's good to know. Now I'm gonna have to try that out.
Need more room in your refrigerator.
I want to know, I guess apparently there's also a way to sort of spur them on to germinate by using heat. Has anybody tried that in this group?
Mary,
You
using
hear me,
heat.
this is Alita.
Go ahead.
Not with the Narrowleaf, but I've done it with the tropical. Because I have a grow pad, and I use the little when you buy your berries, a plastic, and I put a little bit of just potting, the seed soil, and then put the seeds in there, so it's just a maybe half an inch of soil, and the grow pad, and they all come up. It's like bomber method. But I haven't tried it with the Narrowleaf. That's why I'm here, because I want to learn how to do it.
Nice. Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, heat can really help a lot. And right now, the ones that I showed you, we didn't grow those on heated benches, but heated benches and seeds, or the things that the little containers that you can buy at the store, can really help with that metabolism and getting things going. So I can't wait to try it out when we get our new greenhouse in the OH department. I'm excited. All right. Are there any other questions that we want to address from the chat? And are there any other questions you want to ask? I'd like to open it up more widely to some of the insect things, which we don't have much time, so don't get too deep into it. You've got 8 minutes. Feel free to, let's see, Sheila, you raised your hand.
Yes, I just had a quick question. You mentioned protecting seed by putting on gauze bags. Do you have a commercial source, and what kind of mesh it is? So how small a seed would it protect? Like, could you use it for Dudley seed, or just what do you use for these plants? And we'll go from there.
Mary?
We use just those gauze gift bags that you get. You can get them, buy them online, or buy them like at Hobby Lobby or Michael's. They come in big bags, and they're those, they're usually for baby gifts or baby shower gifts.
Yeah.
And there's a name for them. It's escaping me right now, but they're gauze gift bags. And they come in 2 sizes. They come in a larger one and a smaller one. I use the smaller ones because I'm usually just trying to put it over one pod, maybe 2, but they work really, really well. Now, you can only do that on private property, on your property, or if somebody else is giving you permission to do that. You can't do that. You can't collect seed on public property, but it works really well because you can just walk away and forget about it. Oh, there she goes, wedding organza gift bags. That's what they are. You can walk away and forget about it and come back, and it does really help keep out the milkweed bugs who suck a lot of juices out of your seeds. Doesn't help so well with the aphids. They tend to get in there anywhere, but you can snug it on the bottom, and it's actually really a nifty way to collect, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I love not having to, patrol and watch out. It just, you're limited, I guess, by the size of the gauze to how fine a seed one could collect with it.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, milkweed seeds are plenty big for that.
Right. Great. And then can you just cut the whole pod off, leave it in the bag to make collection easier?
Yep.
Great.
Just
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to mention, because I saw something really cool when I was looking at the Xerces report on milkweed. They use a shop vac and they suck in the milkweed seeds with the floss, and the floss sticks to the filter and the milkweed seeds fall down when it gets inside the body of the shop vac. And I want to try that. So if anybody tries it before me, let me know. All right, well, thank you all very much for attending. Reach out to me and I'll try to gather emails and send a resource list, especially with the insect questions, and come join us again and let us know how things are going with your propagation of milkweeds and any other native plants. The fun part about this group is that people are excited about a lot of different areas of native plants, and we love to share knowledge and learn from each other. So thank you all for coming today, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
awesome.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh.